Good afternoon, everyone. We're here for our FY24 budget deliberations. It's June 14th, 2023, and the time is 2 p.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Brooks, Matari, and Duncan. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go ahead with our one item, which is the FY24 budget brief, including a budget, personal expenses, and we'll start off with Finance Director Brandy Falcon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brandy Falcon for the record. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So today we're going over personnel budget asks. There's quite a bit to cover. I've provided you with the preliminary summary, which is just our overall balancing spreadsheet to show where we're at in terms of balancing the budget. And I provided a scenario for each COLA scenario. So last time you asked me to go ahead and calculate a 6% COLA, which is what the range that HR had kind of recommended. So your first preliminary summary shows a 0% COLA, which puts you at $2.7 million ahead in revenues at a 3% tax increase. The next scenario is a 6% COLA, which would put you $421,000 in the hole, essentially. The next scenario is a 5% COLA, which would put you $112,000 ahead in revenue. The last one is a 4.5% COLA, which would put you $380,000 ahead in revenues. So those are the three scenarios. Something that I do want to briefly mention, and I was talking with the clerk about this earlier today. So the interest revenue from the treasurer, we've talked about this. It's high this year, and that is an anomaly. That will not happen every year. So the recommendation would be to try and levy one-time expenses with that differential, which is about $2 million. Right now, in order to make that happen, you would have to use up $950,000 more in property tax for capital expenses. We could go back and do that, make that adjustment. But if you keep that in your head, that's basically using another $950,000 of property tax in each of these scenarios. So that would put you $950,000 more in the hole on each of these scenarios. I just wanted to put that out there before we get started. First, I'd like to talk about the 5-year matrix requested from the Sheriff's Office to put the patrol and command staff within 3% of Coeur d'Alene. That's $1.2 million. And I'd like your direction on to keep that or cut that from the budget.
Okay. So, Bruce, did you want to start with that, or Bill?
Commissioners, I would like to be heard on that subject, if that's possible.
I mean, I'm fine if the sheriff would like to speak first.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, members of the public. Kootenai County has a long history and culture of not properly paying law enforcement staff. Law enforcement is a 24-hour, 365-day-a-year job. Sheriff's Office operates a small city called the Kootenai County Jail. Law enforcement is the largest part of any municipal budget. The Kootenai County Jail is averaging 500 inmates a day, with 80% incarcerated on a felony charge. Special handling of inmates have increased fourfold over the last 10 years. Substance abuse and mental health issues plague our county. Our patrol deputies are also handling a more violent and frequent criminal element. We can no longer afford, from an officer's safety aspect and from a financial aspect, to be a training ground for other agencies. We have reviewed the county's hiring practices from 2010 to 2019. We have lost $3,496,746, and it cost the county $6,569,644 to recruit, hire, and retain 29 deputy sheriffs. Total training time for a deputy to have the experience necessary to be an efficient and highly functioning law enforcement officer takes approximately 5 years. The cost to recruit, test, train a deputy sheriff to the point that a field training officer has passed them to ride in a cruiser by themselves is approximately $105,962. The National Policing Institute puts that number at $100,000. In fact, Lisa, could you give the commissioners a copy? The Sheriff's Office reviewed and analyzed 62 hirees from 2010 to 2019. During the first 36 months of employment, 17 deputies left. between 36 and 60 months of employment, another 16 deputies left, thereby totaling 33 of the 62 deputies that were hired left prior to 5 years of employment. The aggregate recruiting, hiring, and training costs for those 33 deputies equals $3,496,746. This is money the county will never recover. It is lost. To understand what it currently costs the county to have a 5-year deputy, this expense must be fully loaded onto the remaining 29 deputies. The total remaining expense for all 62 deputies equals $6,569,644. When you divide that number by the remaining 29 deputies, it equals $226,539. This is the total cost that it takes to train, recruit, test a deputy through field training to 5 years. This figure does not include the salary of those deputies who left prior to 5 years. While there is a little bit of benefit to that, a deputy with less than 5 years experience is significantly less capable of handling situations on his or her own and still draws supervisor resources that an experienced 5-year deputy does not. Generally, a 5-year deputy does cost less in liability and litigation, does need less supervision, knows the criminal, probation, parole, traffic element, and has more crime prevention and traffic collision reduction strategies than a 1-year deputy does. This leads to less crime and lower fatalities. The more trained and tenured deputy becomes, the more efficient in performing the duties that that deputy has. Also, a tenured officer tends to weigh the safety factors more quickly, which in turn reduces liability and the likelihood of injury for that officer. Now, an estimate using an average tenure of 2.5 years and annual salary of $50,000 would increase the total loaded cost to $4,125,000. If you cut the amount in half due to inefficiency, then the additional loaded cost would be $142,241 for a total loaded cost of $368,780. This cost figure does not include the salaries of the 29 deputies that were retained after 5 years. And we did provide you with some supporting documents that we received from HR in doing this review. So I hope that you take this into consideration. This is no longer a cow town of 40,000 people. We do have an 80% felony incarceration rate over at the Kootenai County Jail. Submitted.
Okay, Bill?
I think it goes without saying, but let me ask anyway. If the jail is not properly staffed, is there more of a danger of jail personnel being injured?
Oh, absolutely.
And what about the control room operators?
Same thing.
And how much
Absolutely.
overtime are they required now to put in?
I'm sorry, what was
How
the
much
question?
overtime are they required to put in?
Well, we are requiring deputies and control room operators to work overtime. We are managing that overtime. I don't have that exact number, but I could get it back to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bruce?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about this, and to kind of put it into perspective, it's a little bit, it's a basic organizational problem. The technical term is being penny wise and pound foolish. What we're doing here is we're spending our money on advertising, recruiting, and training, as opposed to spending our money on keeping the people. And so what happens is that you just have to look at the cost benefit here. It costs about $105,000 to train a deputy, recruit and train a deputy to the point that the field training officer signs off and they can drive a cruiser solo. But a fully trained deputy is a 5-year deputy. And so they're really getting the on-the-job training once they're signed off and they're on their own. But the universe of deputies was 62 deputies. In the first 3 years, 17 deputies were gone. And so you take that 105,000 and you apply that, times 17 and then divide it by the remaining number of deputies, which I believe was 45 or something like that. And then if you go to 5 years, you have 29 out of those 62 deputies. So you have 33 deputies that have left, that we've hired and left. We paid for the training, not their salary, just the training. And I think that came out to about $3.5 million in training money. And so, the argument is that do we spend this money for the salaries and keep these deputies, hopefully, at least not give them a reason to leave because of money. If there's a reason they're going to leave, let's not make it money. And the other intangibles are that we get a better quality person. Now, this is something that I've learned, but, I think it's fair to say in a comparison way that a deputy who has 5 years under his belt versus 1 year is a more efficient deputy. Now, I don't really understand exactly how that efficiency works, but one could argue that a commissioner that's less than 1 year has a lot more to learn than a commissioner with 5 years. So the efficiency levels are going to be
You're
different.
being too hard on yourself.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sheriff, but I got 7 more months to go, and then I'll get that 1 year under my belt. And so that's really kind of how it is. And same thing with the legal profession or with doctors. The more years of experience, the better they're going to be. And so, in essence, we're kind of shortchanging ourselves if we can't keep these people, at least strongly incent them to stick around for 5 years. Now, if they're not going to stick around for the money, then we need to look at what those issues are. But I do believe with a $20,000 spread between Coeur d'Alene and Kootenai County, after 5 years, it's pretty much a no-brainer for a young person that wants to start a family, buy a home. $20,000 a year difference in salary adds up to about $100,000 a year in mortgage that somebody can apply for, and that's a big difference. So I think that in this particular situation, we need to spend money in order to save money. And we need to spend it on the people and make the investment in the people and not in the recruiting and training. And so I'm for getting the deputies to within a reasonable percentage of certainly Coeur d'Alene.
Appreciate that.
That's where I stand.
Commissioner, also on some of the things that you made comments on, this office is in a state of always hiring. We are neglecting some of our duties that we should be mentoring and developing employees, but we are always in a state of hiring, a state of stagnancy, that every single one of us is in that state of hiring. And it takes away our ability to develop our employees and to work on other projects that we'd like to work on. I'd like to have an expanded volunteer program, but we're all collateraled out.
Okay. So I agree. I think that we should be able to pay our deputies enough to want to stay here, along with, addressing culture issues and internal things that makes it a great place to work. I have serious issues with the 5-year matrix because the certificates have been taken out. So to me, that is not going to be beneficial to the department overall. Ada, Canyon, Bonner, they all have certificates. Ada, even though they're fully staffed or near fully staffed, they have a lower starting rate than we do. So to me, that means there's a more complex issue that we need to address. I think it can disenfranchise the people who are, year 7 and 8, and now a 5-year deputy is going to make as much as they do. So I don't think we have not looked at the full ramifications of this 5-year matrix. So I would suggest keep the 9-year matrix, bring it within 3% of Coeur d'Alene. So just increasing the amount. And I think that this will cause an extensive domino effect, and we don't have a 5-year projection on what this is going to cost us to maintain in the future. I mean, we do have a good year this year, but each year we don't know what the market's going to do. We don't know what the economy is going to do. So I have some serious concerns about this. And then also, we've addressed recruiting a little bit, but not to the extent where I think we can do a lot better job recruiting people and to get them in these seats and then be able to have our culture and our matrix retain them. So I'd be in favor of funding steps and be in favor of getting our matrix, our current 9-year matrix, to 3% of Coeur d'Alene. At this point, I think that there's just too many concerns, questions that have not been answered on a 5-year matrix at this point. And honestly, not that I don't love our captains, but our captains are going to be the ones who are going to make out the most. They are. It's not going to be our deputies. It's going to be the captains that are going to see the hugest increase here, and we don't have captains leaving for other law enforcement agencies. So those are my issues with the 5-year matrix, and they're severe enough where I think it'll be a mistake to do that without addressing these concerns. So again, I'd just be in favor of getting our 9-year matrix to within 3% of Coeur d'Alene wages.
So you mentioned Ada County. Did you talk to Sheriff Clifford in Ada County?
No?
Okay. Did you?
So I'm sorry, Sheriff, this is not going to be a debate.
You made comments. I'm just trying to address them.
Yes.
So how do you reference Ada County? Because I do talk to Sheriff Clifford, and he attributes a 5-year matrix of retaining people. So I'm asking you, because you opened this up. I didn't open up this line of questioning. You did.
Does Bonner have a
So-
5-year matrix? So I'm
No.
not talking about the 5-year in particular, I'm talking about certificates. They had their
You
5-year
mentioned it in
matrix
your
with the
commentary.
certificates.
You
Okay,
mentioned
once
it in your
again,
commentary.
I'm not going to do this with you, Sheriff. I have my points, okay,
I have
you've
some
made
other
your
questions.
points.
I have some other questions.
Well,
This is our
hold
process.
off for just a second.
But this is our process. We're not a city.
That's
I have
exactly
city
right.
managers.
So I
This is
don't
our
think we
process.
should
So why
have
don't you want to have
city
a
do this.
dialogue of the processes?
Because it's not a dialogue with you.
Because you don't support it.
I support giving your officers a raise. So that's what I support, getting them through steps on the matrix and raising the amount of the steps. That's what I support, okay? I listed all my reasons for not supporting the 5-year. I think
But
there's more
what
than that.
agencies in Idaho that have a 5-year matrix lose people to a large number after 5 years? You also alluded to that. Which agency? So you're not prepared to argue what you're saying. That's what I have a problem with.
Well,
I've
and
done,
you can
I've
have a
done hours
problem.
and hours of research on this.
And that's fantastic, and I appreciate that, so.
Can I ask a couple questions? I trust that, we've talked a little bit about this, but I trust that the plan is to have some sort of certifications that they're going through to get to, each of these steps if we go with the 5-year matrix.
Absolutely. We've reached out to ICRIMP. We would like to know why some agencies do have an evaluation program, some do not. We will use the same standards that we have used when the board found it necessary to give a bonus during COVID. And some of those measurables was there a current active investigation and what have. Some of those measurables that will have to be met for them to be able to go on to the next.
But these are professional oriented. These aren't HR, annual reviews,
No,
so to speak.
these are common protocols throughout the law enforcement industry.
And what is your plan, supposing we go with a 5-year matrix? Someone at that point, they peaked out as a deputy. So I'm assuming that promotion is one avenue to increase your salary. What would be the plan behind that?
Also, we want to incentivize all of our personnel to have a degree of expertise in many of the different disciplines that we have. There is a stipend for that, but we do want them to go on to be field training officers. We don't want them to be DRE trained, drug recognized experts. We want them to be part of the SWAT team. We want them to be part of detectives. So we have a whole vast of disciplines that they can also improve their salary through those disciplines, being an expert in those disciplines. And there's a process to qualify for them, for that.
So how would that play out for someone as far as the attrition after they plateau on 5 years? Basically, if I'm hearing you correctly, that the incentive now is as a 5-year deputy to go into training, to go into different disciplines within the sheriff's office, to learn all the different aspects. And in patrol, that would include, can you list off some of those for us, just so I can kind of understand that?
K-9, field training officer, dive team,
Detectives?
traffic team, detectives, range,
Air support.
air support.
So the patrol is basically the entry point for all of these other disciplines within the,
100%,
and not the jail?
correct.
Okay.
There are some, maybe like the range staff, but generally, most of them are patrol-oriented, yes.
And they're not having this problem down in Ada
No, they're +1.
since they instituted this?
Well, they're +1 currently, but their retention problem went away when they instituted this 15 years ago.
Is there a percent behind Boise that they are, or
Pretty competitive, yeah.
like 2-3% roughly, or?
Yeah, they're right there.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So at this time, I'd like to know which commissioners want to keep this in the budget, so I can mark it as a cut or a keep or further analysis.
Well, I think at this point it should be a keep.
Okay?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Bruce.
I think it should be a keep.
Okay.
What do you think, Bill?
I would agree.
Leslie?
I'm still against it. The certifications are an issue, and that's not talking about going from department to department within the department. It is talking about certification for their training and for their degrees and stuff of that nature.
Well, I thought I just heard that that's what it was. Is that not the case?
That's not what I just heard from the sheriff. I heard that it's going from the different units that they have, not that
No, this
they
is
have
a-
to have they have to have a bachelor's degree to go to this certification level and so on.
Well, my understanding was that from, year 1 to 5, they have these certifications. And then after 5 years is when you go to the different disciplines within the sheriff's office. Is that correct?
Generally, that's what we like to see. We like to see that 5 years in patrol, then put in for field training officer, and then go on to different other areas of the department. But if the board would like, we will make a group of measurables that what is required from the employee to be able to make it to the next step.
And that would include being a graduate of like a senior deputy program or something like that?
Well, I don't even think we're even discussing senior deputy pay at this point in time. I think
Well-
we're just trying to reduce a 5-year matrix. But I believe that we can set some measurables to allow that deputy to go on to the next step if they do this, this, and this.
Well, then I'll caveat my earlier comment, which is I'm all for the 5-year matrix, but there are professional standards that
Correct.
have to be met in order for them to go to that next level.
Correct. And
Okay.
I'm willing to work with the board and HR to ensure that we come up with some measurables for that.
And I'd also like to see a 5-year projection on maintaining this particular 5-year matrix and one for 911 and for jail as well, because the sheriff had mentioned that those were next. So to approve this, we need to know how much it's going to cost in the future.
So you want a projection for this 5-year matrix for 5 years, and then for detention and 911, you want to move them down to 5 years and see how much
Well,
that?
I don't know how we're
Or
going to
their current
guesstimate this.
matrix,
No, I'm not worried about the current matrix. I'm worried about coming forward in
like
the
next year, if they want to make them a 5-year as
Yeah.
well? Okay.
And could you make a clarification to Brandy? I believe that the Spokane County Jail is a 7-year matrix, and we wouldn't. I
So
believe-
to do 911 and detention as 7 years?
The jail is 7, and dispatch as 5? 5.
So right now, dispatch, I think, is in more dire straits than patrol is. So we'll want to to look at those things, so.
Yeah, I can work on that. Okay, so I'm gonna mark the 5-year matrix as a keep then, since we have 2 out of 3 commissioners in favor. And obviously, for the record, it is contingent on these professional certifications or, you know, the master deputy, whatever, being discussed with HR.
Yes, I would like to see that.
We will make a set of references.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, do you have any direction or preference on a COLA for the rest of the county? Everyone who's not patrol and command staff. So I provided those 3 scenarios. You had originally asked for 6%, and then I also did 5 and 4.5.
At this point, with that 900,000 that we're going to have to come up with, I'd be in favor of a 4.5% COLA, since that's what's being offered to the sheriff's department right now.
Okay. Bill or Commissioner Matari?
I agree.
Okay,
I think it should be a lot more than that.
okay.
We've had a little dip right now in the inflation rate. But over the last 24 months, the inflation has really eaten away at the pay and the lifestyle of all county employees. And COLA is a cost of living allowance. And there's been a hell of a increase in our cost of living. And it is very easy to determine what that is down to the tenths of a percent. And 4.5% is not even coming close. And I think it's wrong to ask employees of the county to bear that.
So they're also getting steps. So even with the 4.5%, the lowest step is 2%, so that person would get a 6.5%. And I think one of the highest steps is 4%, is that right?
I believe
So they'd be
4%
get
is the highest.
8.5%.
But that's not how you figure COLA, is what somebody might be promoted to in the next year. It's a matter of cost of living.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have 2 out of 3 commissioners right now that want the 4.5, so that's what I'm gonna put down for now.
Okay.
I'm gonna move on to our personnel summary, which has all of the other requests for the county. I'm gonna start at the top section, which is requests for new positions, and I'm just gonna go down the list. If you have questions, please feel free to interrupt me. So at the top, first, we have a request from the assessor for a new customer service technician 1. Loaded cost would be $65,000.
So I think I need some metrics for this. Bayla, if you can provide, I don't know if it'd be a parcel increase or what, but at this point, I know you guys have busy seasons, so can you sustain a full-time person in the not busy season? So if there's any metrics you can provide to me to say that why you would need that.
I don't have the metrics with me today.
Sure.
but I can work on it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just gonna leave that in for now unless anyone has any further thoughts. Next is a request from the airport for a airport operations specialist, loaded cost of $75,000, but then $8,600 of onboarding costs.
And is that onboarding cost in the special programs as well, so we're not
Yep.
double counting?
All of the special programs this year are only onboarding costs.
Yeah.
So we'll be covering all of them as we go through these.
Perfect. I am in favor of keeping this in. I believe that the airport revenues will cover it, so they'll still be self-sustaining. They're going to have a ridiculous amount of projects, one we just approved yesterday, and so I think they're going to need that extra body, especially since it will not be tax funded.
Okay, everyone's
Yep.
good with that?
Yep.
Next is a request from Building and Grounds for a facilities director, total loaded cost of $142,000. And as we go through these, just so you know, you always have the option to fund a position at 50% if you think, oh, maybe we're not gonna hire them until maybe halfway through the year. So you're getting the FTE, but you're taking half the hit for that fiscal year. This is one of the more expensive positions. You could do that, or you could just fund the whole thing.
I've heard we're getting to that point.
I think we are, especially with, if we're going to have the justice expansion, the jail pods, the potential of 2 new courtrooms at juvenile detention, selling 3rd Street if we can get elections a new home, and selling JJC. So I can't do this, so I would really be happy if we had a facility director to
Yeah.
manage this.
I guess that, the question is just the timing on that, and should we look at this as a mid-year? Or is this something
Construction could
we,
be starting in September,
so we want to start earlier rather than
I
later?
would rather start earlier rather than.
And how does that fit into the rest of the requests here? Should we look at it as an aggregate or just individually?
Well, are you talking about rest of building and grounds?
Yes.
So the other three positions are actually bringing our janitorial in-house. So we talked
Yeah,
about that. So their
yeah.
B budget would be reduced by this amount of money.
Yeah,
So it's a one-for-one. It's not really a.
yeah. I guess the only question is just what happens if we're not happy?
Well, that's the problem. We are looking to hire 3 full-time employees because we're not happy with any of the service that we've been able
I
to
know.
be provided.
I know.
So we don't even know if we can hire these people. And we're able to keep our current people while we look and to hire these people.
Yeah.
So it's,
Okay, well, I'd say keep them in then.
okay.
Okay, so you want to keep the director position and the 3 janitorial positions?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
and do you want to fund that director position at 100%?
I would say so.
Okay. That's fine. Next is a request from community development for a landscape architect. Loaded cost of $124,000 plus $3,600 of onboarding costs. Another expensive position that you could consider funding at 50%.
Come on down.
I'm here for any questions you may have.
Well, would you like me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. You had talked about this position once before, so just to kind of refresh people's memories, can you just talk about, how it really will help within community development and looking at these projects?
Of course, be glad to. We don't have anyone or any position on staff with the credentials that are required, frankly, to be able to review site disturbance permit plans, especially the more technically involved ones, storm drainage plans which accompany those site disturbance plans, and those same kinds of plans for variances, the CUPs, and all the subdivisions we process. So there's frankly a lot of engineering that landscape architects or professional engineers know how to do that we need to be able to review, and we have no one on staff except myself that has that kind of training and experience. And of course, I can't be that person.
Are we using outside agencies right now?
A little bit, not much. We use Welch Comer for the most difficult cases. And I should volunteer, there are at least 4 people in the audience I know of that are in support of this, because I've talked with them, I recognized them, and there are people that are concerned that my staff needs to have the credentials to do this work.
Is there enough workload in the office that this person, if they were not working on site disturbance type issues, that they could assist there?
Yes. Any professional engineer or landscape architect has lots of crossover talent.
Okay.
I'm a landscape architect by training and experience. I'm your director.
Are you at this point now where you need that kind of help?
Yes, sir. Well, frankly, we've been at this point for some time. You are the first board, and this is the first budget where I felt like it was the right time to ask.
Revenues going forward, Brandy, we're looking at publishing at the end of this month and bringing them on board October 1st. We haven't had a full discussion yet to vote on that. But would this is not going to be covered by the additional revenues, is that correct?
It wasn't included in my initial
Calculation.
analysis. Their
Okay.
revenues fluctuate so much with the market,
Right.
so.
Can we?
Can we?
Can we incorporate this into the,
Not necessarily, because it would be only if they could be one project. Like, it would be like a whole project associated with this position.
for the fees?
So, yeah, for the fees.
Well, I mean, I could add it to the overall cost burden that needs to be covered, or you could like I said, fund it at 50% and wait a year and see how their revenues shake out and analyze more in depth next year once we see a full year's effect of increased fees.
I mean, I don't have a problem if we include it in what you just said, the overall overhead, if that can be done.
But I think we published the numbers already.
It's yeah, if they've already done that, it's too late.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's too
well,
late.
that's, all right, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
So,
Commissioners, I can add that if it helps you feel more comfortable about this, just last year in 2022, we processed 369 site disturbance permits and collected $121,000 in fees. But the takeaway, in my view, is that had a total value for all those projects of $25 million in the county, just for site disturbance permits.
Yeah, I say just leave it in for now. We are going to have about $600,000 to cut from the budget, but
yeah, I'm fine leaving it in.
Okay, we'll leave it in, funded at 100%.
yeah, Bill?
Yes.
We did that. Okay.
Okay. Next, the juvenile detention maintenance staff has been incurring some expenses in overtime, so they're requesting to have an overtime budget of $1,000. It's a loaded cost of $1,200.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Next is a request from the public defender for a new social worker position. You could consider, they have 17 open positions, so you could consider just converting one of the open positions to a social worker position. We only have them for one more year. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, without Ann being here for that conversion conversation, I would just say that this social worker piece is going to be needed. And because they're funded, mostly now through sales tax and their grant funding.
Well, we're having to use $200,000 of indigent fund balance right now, so this is going to fall to that fund
If they
balance.
can fill those open positions.
No, well, we fund open positions whether they're occupied or not, so we're still
Right.
using $200,000 of fund balance.
Right, but we still may not use that much, is the issue.
From the open positions.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying at fiscal year end '23, I can return that money to indigent fund balance if we don't use it?
Probably,
Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
yeah. I mean, unless there's a better place for it to go.
Okay, so I'm gonna leave that one in for now then.
Yes, please. They need it. They really need it. And if we need to have that conversation with Ann, to convert a lawyer position, which,
Well, we could even do an admin assistant position that they have open, or they have non-attorney positions open too.
yeah. So I would say it would not be a good thing to do an attorney position
Okay.
for that conversion, but
I'm fine with that, Bill.
Yes.
Next is a position from Veteran Services, a loaded cost of $83,000, onboarding cost of $4,000.
It sounds like the workload is there for Tom on this one.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it in.
Yeah.
Next is a request from the prosecutor for a legal assistant, loaded cost of $73,000, onboarding cost of $2,000.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that.
Is this because of the prosecutor hires?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yep,
Okay, so gonna leave that one in.
yes.
Next is a request from the auto shop for a new mechanic, loaded cost of $69,000.
I guess my question would be, if we have the same number of cars, I mean, obviously, we're getting newer cars with the department, would that matter? Would that be a consideration? Since we're getting all these newer vehicles, we're not really expanding our fleet countywide.
Yeah.
Captain Deke, did you want to speak to that?
So just last year alone, our repairs and fabrications have gone up 40%. Some of that is aging fleets, and we are following the fleet management plan. But with two mechanics and a supervisor, they have to do all the ordering. They're tracking things that we do send out for repairs, as well as maintain each of those vehicles for the county. And each department is asking for more each year.
What's
It's
the,
been 20 years since we've added a position in that spot.
what's the turnaround time on your vehicles when you turn them in?
Varies, depends on the mechanic, or it depends on the repairs, but generally pretty quick.
Yeah.
Especially for the sheriff's fleet, because they're all Ford parts, most of them.
When you say generally pretty quick, like a couple weeks?
Depends on.
I mean, for
depends
your
on the
maintenance stuff, obviously for certain repairs.
days, less than hours.
Yeah.
Oil changes are quick. It's like Jiffy Lube or any of those. But
And is it possible that might be able to wait 1 year? I'm just asking.
with the move, we'd like to, maybe we do a mid-year.
We could
Do
fund
that.
it 50%.
That, we'd appreciate that.
Okay.
You want to fund this one at 50%?
Yeah.
Okay, next we have 3 requests for 3 new Hayden deputies, and I will remind you, last year you funded these at 50%.
Did we ever hire them?
We have assigned them, but obviously with our 13 vacancies, Robert Norris Sheriff, we have assigned, but we have not hired because we have 13 vacancies. I'm still in talks with them every 2 weeks. Can we leave it in and readdress it, revisit it?
I think that would be prudent. It's contingent on, what we end up doing.
And actually, those 3 deputies would make us balance the budget. So it would be nice to find out what they're going to be able to cover, bring in more revenue if they can cover more of this. So,
Okay, I'm going to mark those as contingent then.
yes.
Now we're going to move down to the lower section, which is requests for changes to existing personnel. First, the assessor, a request to budget for a conversion from customer service technician 2 to customer service technician 3, total loaded cost of $2,200.
So is there a person in the 2 right now that meets the qualifications of the 3? Is that what you're looking for?
There's a person.
Can you turn your mic on, please? Thank you.
Commissioners, we have an employee presently in a 2 position right now, yes. And they've been performing duties above and beyond 2 for the better part of, I'd say probably the last 6 or 7 months.
Have they been performing level 3 or just above 2?
It's been above 2, it's level 3. Let me get back to your question. Could you ask your question again?
Just that, is this a future, like somebody is going to be moving from a 2 to a 3 this year after they get training, experience? Or right now, today, it's appropriate to move this person from a 2 to a 3 because they've been performing those duties?
Yes, to that. Right now, today, they're very trained, this individual. But actually, we've had a 4th position in our customer service area years ago, predates me, and a prior administration of the assessor's office asked to move a position, a FTE position, down to the DMV. And at the time, they felt that was the appropriate decision to do, but we've been needing an employee in the customer service area to train up because we have personnel that's going to be retiring and we want to be able to transition. So this is feeding into that. So that's why we're making the request for the 2 as well as the 3, because we have an individual who's been performing duties above and beyond. And we need to then also train up to fill that position or replace that person when they leave.
With that retirement, is that going to leave a position 3 open?
At that point in time, it would.
Okay, so then.
But I believe that's a few years off. It's not on the near horizon. It's probably about 2 years out.
So is this changing the organizational structure by, you have a certain number of, I assume, Tech 1s, Tech 2s, and Tech 3s, and now you're going to change a Tech 2 to a Tech 3? position?
My understanding is historically, there's been a Tech 1, Tech 2, and a Tech 3. Those are positions that have existed before I came here. We've had 4 customer service clerks. So we have clerks and technicians. And I believe we had 4 clerks before and 1 technician.
For the front, this is all front counter.
In our front area, yeah. And we're losing the experience, and we need to prepare for that.
I'm just trying to figure it out a little bit
I-
in my head. You know, like, for example, if there's an open slot in number 3, then the number 2 would get promoted to it. But here we're just changing the position from a number 2 to a number 3.
Which means when the original number 3 leaves, it'll have to be downgraded probably to a 2 or a 1 because it's difficult to hire another 3 unless they already have another person ready to promote.
Yeah, I'm not at liberty to speak too much to the details, but I do have some plans. I think I can address that. So,
Meaning that the 3 would go back to a 2 at some point.
meaning that I believe we could make an argument in favor of retaining the 3 after the transition.
So that front counter position would need 2 position 3s.
Well, no, I'm asking for a position, a customer service technician 2.
Okay, so we're not talking about the brand new position. We're only talking about the upgrade from a customer service 2 to a 3.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
what was your question?
You want to work with him on that and just
Yeah,
see because you might be able to see the succession plan?
let's just put it on the keep list for now. And can you and I talk a little bit, just so I
Absolutely.
can understand it? Because normally you have a certain ratio of, Tech 3s to Tech 2s to Tech 1s, and just to kind of get a sense as to where you're, how you're seeing this progress over
Okay.
time. Because they could end up all being Tech 3s at some point if we continue to
Right,
bump the positions up.
thank you.
I understand.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so next we have, I'm gonna mark that as potential. You'll discuss with the assessor further. Next, we have 5 requests from the assessor as well to convert residential appraiser 1s to residential appraiser 2s upon their certification. Total loaded cost for all of them is $21,000.
So this dovetails a little bit into the last discussion. How many, so this is a question that I'm posing, is how many do we need to have for that ratio of 1, 2s, and 3s? Because in my mind, there's a second thing at play here. It's like if we're encouraging these people to continue to get their education and move up, then I don't have a problem with the conversions once these people reach that certification level. But to your point, are we then all going to have appraiser 2s and 3s, and we're not going to have any 1s?
How does that work, Assessor?
Well, when we've been hiring as appraiser 1, so basically a trainee position. It's very difficult to find anyone with experience that's going to move into a 2 or a 3 right away. And so more often than not, the people that we hire are not certified, and they have to work 1 full year under the direct supervision of a certified appraiser and complete coursework and exams. And after the course of 1 year doing that, then they become certified. Historically, what we've done is we've moved them up. When they become certified, we then bump them a little bit in wage when they become certified. As far as a ratio of 1s to 2s or 3s, I don't know that I could speak to a ratio unless if I have staff here who could speak to that issue. But we have 6 residential districts, and within each district we have a lead appraiser, and we have a separate, I guess you want to call it a trainee appraiser right now. And so if you want to consider a ratio, a 50-50 ratio to a more seasoned, more experienced appraiser working together with a less experienced, essentially a trainee. Eventually, if we have stability, if we don't have any turnover, you could have all appraiser 3s or even 4s.
Yeah.
So that's an eventuality. I don't know that we're going to get to that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. And sometimes you want people to get their credentials and their certifications.
What's required?
Yeah, so, and then I take it the level 2, that is what you're supposed to get when you get your certification or your credential?
Actually, when they become certified, I believe that would be still an appraiser 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
we hire them with the requirement that they will be
Yeah.
certified within a year.
Yeah. I'm okay, if you're okay, we'll just keep this and add this to the list of, the other.
revisit?
The other conversion that you and I were going to talk about.
Right.
That's fine. So the other thing that we've done in the past is said, okay, we'll go ahead and approve it, but not fund it. So they'll use salary savings throughout the year. But I'm always wanting to have them go to open positions first. So if you have somebody that's going to qualify from a 1 to a 2, they need to go into an open 2 position rather than converting that position.
Because then we have to continually adjust the positions
Sure.
Correct.
as,
Yeah, so
So-
that would be the qualification. But yeah, we can.
so you and I'll,
Yes, we will.
okay,
Okay, I'm gonna mark those down for further discussion.
yes.
Next is 2 requests from the assessor to convert their technician 2/comptroller positions to business intelligence analyst positions. Total loaded cost for both of them is $11,000.
So my question is, right now today, the 2 people that are in those positions prior conversion, do they have the experience and the education to meet the qualifications of this new position?
Yes. Yes, they do.
Okay?
Are these the 2 positions that have helped out a lot with increasing efficiency, saving a lot of time,
Yes.
things like that?
Yes, I haven't had a chance to publish some good news stories, but they've been able to help us dramatically increase the efficiencies of the operation.
Can you share one story?
Well, some of the processes, for example, that could take up to 2 or 3 weeks of time of the prior employees doing the work, they can complete the processes now in a matter of 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Dramatic increases, and I've got many examples of that.
Do you still have more areas where these folks could really save a lot of time?
We're constantly discovering new areas. We're prioritizing those. Obviously, you can't check them all off right away, but
Yeah.
and we want to run parallel to make sure that we're not jeopardizing operations when we do that.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably good money to be spending for what, the kind of time savings I've been hearing about.
yeah, and I would venture to say that I would like to take a look at those positions. I really think, along the lines of what the sheriff has spoken to, Kootenai County paying what these positions are worth. Even with this bump that we're talking about here, it really doesn't come close to paying what the market rate is for these positions. And I'm looking at other best practices, other assessors' offices across the U.S., Maricopa County, what they're doing, even in Canyon County. And so I would want to come back and take a closer look at even these 2 positions. I think we could do better to retain them.
Well, I would argue just one step at a time.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
I'm good with this.
Okay, Bill?
It's fine.
Okay?
Okay, I'm gonna mark those down as a keep. Next is 2 more requests from the assessor to convert 2 commercial appraiser 1s to commercial appraiser 2s upon certification.
Is this the same as the other?
It is the same as the other appraisers we talked in the residential division, same
So
situation.
can we just lump that in our
Yes.
meeting?
Okay.
If that's okay with the board?
Yes.
I'll mark
fine
that
with
down
me.
for further discussion. All right, next we have a request from the airport to increase their overtime pool from $20,000 to $30,000. It's a loaded cost increase of $12,000.
So my question would be, if we're hiring another individual, would we really need more overtime? Because wouldn't another person fill that gap?
Well, That would make sense.
And we don't really have any metrics right now because we just raised it to 20,000 this fiscal year. So we don't really know how they're doing with that.
Well, they're over the 20,000 now, but like you said, I'm not sure how that will be impacted by the new FTE.
You can always come mid-year if they get in trouble.
Can we put this on the short list?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna mark it as a potential cut. Next, we have a request from AMP. This does not have a cost impact, but it still requires board discussion and approval. It's for a call-out comp time policy. I'm just gonna kind of read the narrative here. It would be 8 hours of comp time for the week that the person is on call. The tracking would be done within AMP and must be used within 90 days. The entire 8 hours must be used at one time. And it is, and I discussed this with HR and AMP, then it would be understood that this will not be accruing in the employee's normal comp bank and will not be paid out to them if they leave the county. Each employee would have to sign a letter of understanding between them and AMP, and the paperwork would be sent to HR.
Okay. So this is a bigger discussion, which I'm looking for my notes.
Yeah, conceptually, it seems to make sense, but I just wonder if it's not opening up something else that we may not be thinking about.
Right, well, so this is a bigger discussion of, we have a lot of departments, I believe there's 10 departments I've identified over the years that have the same requirements. So if we're going to pay detectives and allow AMP to do this and other non-exempt employees, then wouldn't we look countywide to do it for all 10 departments? Or what? So that's been the issue that I've dealt with for 5 years now.
Well, Bill, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, if all 10 departments in the county are identical, if you do it for one, you do it for all.
That's
But I-
kind of my thinking on
But
it,
I don't think they're identical.
yeah. But that argument could be made.
So the issue also is these departments who are asking for on-call pay, the non-exempt ones, it's in their job description. So these people know, they understand that it's
Yeah.
an on-call position. So that's kind of where I'm like, well, I don't really want to pick and choose. And the 10 departments in the past has been kind of cost prohibitive and,
So are we saying no? I mean, I understand the arguments. You guys are just a little more experienced on this.
yeah. So
I'm
then,
saying yes, and I see a sheriff with his hand up.
I just have some questions for Keith, if he would be willing to answer them, or maybe Commissioner, the chair, or maybe
at
the
this
chair.
point, I
the
don't
chair
really
knows them.
think it's appropriate. We have 1 hour left for this meeting,
Okay.
and we have still a lot more to go through. This is not our last budget meeting, obviously, so if you want to do
Will we be
more-
addressing the on-call pay for the sheriff's office?
Sure, we can do
Yeah,
the
we're-
on-call pay next, actually, since it's the same subject. So I'm gonna leave AMP undecided. We're gonna jump down a couple lines. Let me find it here. Call out people. Next would be on-call pay. Actually, coroner is next on the list. This is because their staff cannot actually earn overtime, and they have, from what I'm being told and kind of the narrative that goes along with the request, same requirements as other people that receive on-call pay currently.
So that would be, and I guess I don't know, they're definitely, how would that work with the 19-hour people? I mean,
So
how
the
do they
19-hour people aren't allowed to earn overtime, so if they work all their hours in one weekend, the burden falls to everybody else. to
So we're
pick
actually
up.
only talking about one person in,
So all of their staff, only one person is able to, if
Earn
anybody from the
overtime.
coroner is here, they're the better person to speak to it than me. My understanding is only one of them can earn overtime, the rest of them cannot.
correct, yeah, I believe that's
We
the
do have
case.
somebody.
So,
Renee Sabito, Chief Deputy Coroner. So we have one full-time staff and we have 3 part-time people now. So comp time for us, we don't get overtime. Comp time means that if John and Chris go over their hours, they're out of the office altogether. So then that comes back to the full-time staff, which is Joanne and myself. We have this discussion almost daily of how fair is it that we all have to be available, basically, because there's only 4 of us that do this job, 24/7, 365, for the entire community.
Which 6 soon.
6.
Which it's gonna take about 6 to 8 months to get him fully on board, to get him to be able to go on calls by himself.
Sure.
So summertime, of course, busy time. So now we're looking at having not only 1 person on call, but 2 people on call. So 1 person dedicated, the other person has to basically volunteer their time to be on call, 24/7, 365. John and Chris, being the part-time people, kind of pair up and do their calls together if they get called out, and they're backup for each other. The problem with that is then if they both use their 19 and a half, then I don't have either one of them in the office for the rest of the week.
Sure. So I guess I was not considering either or, I'm considering overtime for your 1 person because you and Joanne have to pick up the slack. So I was thinking of proving overtime for that.
That doesn't address paying my on-call people, though.
Well, your on-call people get paid when they go out.
Well, they don't, though. I mean, they get paid their 19 and a half hours.
Right. So they don't work over 19 and a half hours.
Correct. But they still carry a phone 24/7. Because they carry a phone, we have a schedule that you're either on call for 4 days a week or 3 days a week. So
Right.
Monday to Friday morning and Friday morning to Monday morning. So that still requires somebody to hold that phone 24/7.
Right.
And it's $2 an hour for that on-call request.
Sure.
So,
But once again, we're looking at the global, all 850 employees and the 10 departments and stuff like that. So we're just trying to figure out what that balance is with each department. So,
Well, I'm kind of sensing that this is like a summer problem this summer for you.
it's becoming an all-year problem.
But
I
we
mean,
have- but
we're
this-
just as busy as everybody else is, and,
Yeah.
you know, we have the same requirements.
But this is a-
Again, well, and I think we discussed also, you know, if one's out in the mountains somewhere, then somebody else has to cover the rest of the county. We also have Ironman, 4th of July, all the other things that happen that require us to be in and around the area with a phone, with no plans to go out on the lake or go out anywhere else but stuck home base, basically. So,
Yeah, but this is an FY24 question.
okay,
So it seems like we should look at it from the context of you having these 2 additional people.
right, which we've got one, he's gonna work 30 plus, hopefully. And then again, we'd talk about that full-time position again.
So you have 1, and so there's really 1 that's vacant right now
Right,
that you don't have a prospect for to fill.
correct.
yeah, so again, I would prefer overtime rather than
Yeah.
on-call, just to keep it more equitable, because all the other departments get overtime when they
Yeah.
get called out.
How do I compensate my other 2?
Bill?
I'd be interested in the answer to that question.
Okay, so the compensation is they're working, so they use up their 19 and a half hours. So the compensation you're asking for is carrying the phone. Well, that's what I'm talking about, trying to balance it with those other departments when they also have to carry phones, but they're not getting on-call pay either. So that's kind of where we're trying to figure out what the best solution is. But one solution would be that Joanne and your 30-hour person, if they can go over the 30 hours, then that would be overtime. Does that make sense?
I can present that to my elected, yeah.
Pardon?
Sure.
I can present that to my elected.
Do you think that's a possibility, though? To pay one of your part-times, the overtime?
I'd have to ask my elected in what he
Right.
wants that budget space to look like.
Sure.
Yeah,
Should we revisit this one?
Yep, we can do that.
great, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna say revisit. Are you gonna use the same logic for the prosecutors on-call pay and for the detectives on-call pay?
Okay, so detectives are non-exempt, prosecutors are exempt. So that is the difference in my mind with the exempt people not getting the money, not getting paid for when they're called out at 2:00 in the morning to go to a judge's house to get the warrant signed.
Okay,
So-
I thought there were exempt people in the coroner's office as well, but I could be mistaken.
Just the chief deputies, the only exempt.
Okay.
Everybody else is hourly.
So are you approving the request from the prosecutor, same as prior, 18,000 loaded.
I still would like to keep that, and we can have the broader conversation of the other departments that are asking for this, and then the other departments that
Miss Chair?
still,
And then there's 10,000 requested from detectives for on-call pay.
right, so that's the one that I've wanted to look at the broader, that, especially because I think detectives get like $3.25 an hour just being detectives, and then they get paid for all the time that they go out on call. So that's where I'm at with that.
May I
Sure.
take 2 minutes? So the way that I read state statute, there's only 2 offices that have to go out in a timely manner to preserve a crime scene, collect evidence, and that's the sheriff's office and the coroner's office. That's the way that I read state statute. Even if there was another entity, they don't collect evidence, they don't transport evidence, they don't transport prisoners. The sheriff's office does. The coroner's office does do that with evidence. So our argument is that not all departments are the same. We have to respond to these events in a timely manner to preserve evidence. And courts have recognized that there needs to be a collection of evidence in a timely manner. So that is our argument for on-call pay.
So my question is, jail building and grounds or jail building maintenance, if there is a leak or some issue, do they have to respond promptly?
Well, if Robert Norris, we have had situations where if they're not able to, we call an outside entity. Because as it pertains to health of individuals, absolutely, they have to come out.
Okay.
We've had backup of sewers, and that, unfortunately.
Thank you.
I'm fine with just having a larger conversation
Okay.
so we can get this right the first time.
Okay, I'm gonna mark all the on-call things as potential then for this larger conversation to be had. I'm gonna go back up to the top where we left off. I'm also gonna mark the AMP one as part of this larger conversation that will be had. Next is a request from AMP for a $2 an hour stipend depending on their certificate. So it'd be like a certificate pay. So based on the certificates currently in place, it would be approximately a $28,000 loaded cost.
So on this particular one, this is almost similar to what we have with the patrol matrix on them earning their different certificates and their different trainings or degrees or things like that. So in place of a matrix, the director has asked for these stipends. I was under the impression it was only $1 an hour, Keith, but I see $2 an hour here.
One of them is $1 an hour, the rest are $2.
Sure.
The reason for the larger amount this time, because it just went into place last year, and they qualified for both certificates, the intermediate and advanced certificates. So that's why it's $2 and the other one's $1, because they didn't qualify for the second certificate.
Okay, so then that means you have 5 of your probation officers who have reached the certification level for these extra $2 an hour.
Correct.
Okay.
And they were-
All right. At this point, I think this is a good solution outside of another matrix for a law enforcement type department. So I would support this at this time.
Yeah, as long as we keep it that way.
Okay, I'm
That's
gonna
good
mark
with you?
that as keep for now. Next is a request from, who is this from? Hang on. Building and Grounds, increase their overtime pool from $2,000 to $3,000. Loaded cost of $1,100.
Yes, I mean, snow and all that kind of stuff, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Bill,
Is that okay?
sounds good to me.
And then we have 3 requests from community development to convert building inspectors to senior building inspectors. Total loaded cost is $18,000.
So then I guess my question for David would be, are all 3 of these people reach this level? And then do we have any kind of ratio between entry level and senior?
We do, I'll defer to Chief Billing Official.
Chris Garland for the record. So we do have approximately 3 staff members. 2 of them have 2 certifications. They are working on the 3rd. So I would assume probably about October, November, they should be reach the 4 certification level to gain the senior inspector position.
Okay. And then as far as salary savings, are you?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Salary savings, is this something that we can approve but not fund? And
They're
have
fully
you?
staffed.
They're fully staffed?
We are fully staffed, yes.
Okay. Right. So is that something that you want to know more about the ratio, or?
Well, I mean, is there supposed to be a ratio, or should it be one of those situations where people just, we can handle, we can have an office where everyone's kind of peaked out at their certification level for the position?
Commissioners, I would frame this as a way to recognize the value added by the expertise of these particular positions. It's a gained expertise. It's our way to value it and then retain it.
Does it enhance productivity at all?
I think it does. What do you think?
It does, because at this point, we have the certifications will be including the commercial building aspect of it. Usually, we have to have a separate inspector that has that knowledge. With this new certification, we don't need a second inspector to take them to go do those inspections.
So you are saving some money there?
We are, quite a bit.
All right. Yeah. I understand. Makes sense.
So I think the next one is kind of related to that as well, as far as are we okay with having all code compliance officers as a 2, or should we have some 1s and 2s? Is there a difference in their job? This is, by the way, most conversions I've ever seen in one budget year, so just
Okay.
saying.
I mean, you don't want to peak people out who just start, and you want them to become better at their job, and hopefully you're getting that productivity when they're better. So I don't see a problem if you have an office full of kind of peaked out at that level, knowing that there's no place else that they can go,
Right.
unless it's a different position altogether. The question is, you being the director and managing the staff, are you getting more value for the dollar so that we can justify that we're actually getting more in return by spending a little more?
Yes.
And we're reliant upon you to give us that information.
I'm happy to report that that is already occurring.
Yeah.
We are getting that level of service from this position, the person in it.
Prior to the conversion. So are all 3 ready, or you said 1 is going to be, at least 1 will happen this fall?
At least 2 will happen this fall.
Okay.
And 1 probably, I would say, maybe 50% of year.
Okay, so fund 2 of them at 100%, fund 1 at 50%.
Correct, yes,
Okay, so fund 1 of the senior building inspector conversions at 50%?
correct.
Right, that would work.
And then what about the code compliance officer 2?
If I may add, for the code compliance officer, this individual does help other departments with language barriers.
Yeah,
So
that
he's
too.
been called several times to facilitate that. So I think that would be an added bonus for him to help out other departments.
My only concern with that is I don't want to call somebody a number two just because they have outside skill sets. I'd rather pay for the outside skill set.
And we agree, this is
No,
just
this
icing
is
on the cake, if
Just,
you will.
I was just merely
Okay.
adding to what
Right.
he already,
Does.
the job
Right.
that he performs already.
So that means no on the conversion for this one.
Well,
No, that means no on the conversion or yes on the conversion?
this person right now is ready to go to a two,
Yes.
right? They have the experience and the
Absolutely.
education
Yes.
and all that stuff. So I just want to make that distinction that
I understand.
we're not making them a two because they are language proficient.
No, I
Right.
just thought I'd throw that in just
Yeah,
to
no, I
help.
understand. So do we need two compliance two officers, or do we need a one and a two? I mean, we have two of them. I don't really have heartache with having two twos.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's just part of the progression for that position.
Okay, I'm gonna mark that down as a yes. Next is a request from Community Development to convert a customer service technician one, regrade them to an admin secretary.
And that's
Loaded
the,
cost of 4,000.
and that's the work they're doing right now.
Yes.
And HR agrees with this
Yes.
conversion. Okay. Then I don't necessarily have an issue with that.
Okay, I'm gonna mark that as a yes.
Yeah, yes is fine.
Okay,
Bill, you good? Okay.
next, another request from Community Development to regrade a customer service clerk, loaded cost of $3,500.
Okay, so this is just what the position is. It's just kind of a reclassification, almost?
Yes.
Okay. And once again, HR agrees with this?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'll mark that as a yes. Next is a request from Noxious Weeds to freeze their seasonal funding. It would be a budget decrease of $17,000.
That's absolutely fine.
Easiest one is a
Yep.
yes. Next, we have a request from Parks and Waterways to regrade their admin assistant to an admin supervisor, loaded cost of $4,800.
And that is appropriate as well. I know I
Yep.
don't see Parks and Waterways here, but that is appropriate with HR. And
That reminds me, Parks and Waterways did not get their budget requests in by the budget deadline. They had sent an email to the commissioners, and I told them I need 2 out of 3 commissioners' approval to add them to the budget. So I'd like on the record your decision on that.
yes,
Yes.
and it's for
Okay.
this position particularly.
It's for their entire department. It's their annual bonuses.
Oh, the annual bonuses, right. So we haven't talked about that yet. But yes, so essentially, it's something they've had in place forever. BOCC does it, solid waste does it. I think the sheriff even has a pool for this. So it's not anything brand new. It's just something that for somehow got dropped off.
Okay,
So,
Yep,
I
that's
will
fine.
add them to their budget requests.
okay, yeah.
Next is several requests from RMO. So the first one is to convert the public transportation manager to the senior program manager and a funding source change for a loaded cost of $6,900.
All right, and is there a frozen position with this as well? They're asking
Yes, so
to
they
freeze
have,
one position?
they have 5 requests. One of those is freezing a position.
So are you to the point where the potential changes in how grants are pushed through the system, are you able to make a decision today on these positions, or are you still in that process?
I am not at the point where I can make a decision.
Okay. So then I would say just put those on the revisit list.
Okay, I'm gonna mark those down as revisit. Next is several requests from solid waste. They have several different overtime budgets, requesting all of them various increases for a total loaded cost of $68,000. And they are self-funded.
Yeah, I would say yes to all their overtime because they're doing more with less because they too are pretty short staff. And so, gotta have the trash moving.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Next is 3 requests from the auditor's department, and obviously I'm here to answer any of your questions. This is to regrade our 3 payroll accountants from, based on a Korn Ferry analysis that I had HR do. I will say that our A budget is still on track to be less than it in FY24 than it was for FY23, even if this request were to be approved.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Yes.
It went through HR.
Okay, mark those as a yes. And then next requests from district court clerks to convert, convert to clerk 3. 3 of those requests for a total cost of $8,100.
So once again, that's the same thing. Do we need to have a ratio of 1s, 2s, and 3s? Or is this something where they're just going to move through the process and we're going to have all 3s eventually because they're going to have that kind of?
Because of the, sorry, it's
Clerk-
because of the
clerk
increased
block.
duties and responsibilities that they're already doing
Okay.
for a while.
So these are actually people who are doing the work right now
Yes,
today?
correct.
Okay.
And just to remind you, the cost will be covered from the increased revenue we're projecting for the magistrate liquor apportionment. We should see another increase of $72,000 in that revenue stream this year. It won't be covered from tax dollars, these
Okay.
increases.
Thank you.
Bill, good.
And then next, a request from district court to convert a judicial assistant position into a juvenile justice services court supervisor. Loaded cost of $10,000.
Yes, I'm fine with that one.
Yes.
Okay. And then a request from elections to increase their overtime from $12,000 to $14,000. Thus far this year, they have spent $12,000. Loaded cost of $2,300.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, would the elimination of the March election change that at all, or?
I believe Ace is here too, but to speak to the overtime, so when we have employees not only in our department work overtime, we actually have people from outside or inside the county come and work from other departments. And so we're having more people to come and work there, increase salaries. We're covering that time and a half in our budget for the overtime.
Yeah, okay.
And it's
But
primarily due to the May primary, is what this says.
Okay.
Well, yes, because it's a presidential year and that we get higher voter turnout, so.
And with the legislators changing laws every year, depends on the workload between, there's a new registration law coming about July 1st too, that's going to change your registration card and processing those too.
Okay. I'm fine with the additional overtime.
Yes.
Okay. And then a request from elections to increase their temp funding pool from $43,000 to $47,000. I believe that's based on increasing the rate of pay to $15.05 an hour.
You just have people who love to do it, because I don't know who else would get paid $12 an hour to come work for you. So I'm fine with that.
Yes.
Okay. And then next, we have a request from the prosecutor to increase their overtime from $1,000 to $11,000. Thus far this year, they've spent $728.
They're expecting to be pretty full, so I'm not sure why. I guess Prosecutor Mortensen, did he leave? There he is. So can you help us understand the increase?
Yes, this is due to I think it was a June 1st. It was a decision that came out in May, but it took effect June 1st. The Supreme Court is requiring in certain cases that my office file documents within 24 hours, where before we were waiting until Monday morning or Tuesday after a holiday to make these filings. Now we're having to file them on Saturdays, Sundays, and sometimes Mondays when it's a holiday. And this duty is falling upon my legal assistants who create the files and make the filings. And so what my office has been doing for a few weeks now is having a legal assistant work for short periods of time, but on Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays. And we entertained the idea of just giving them some comp time, but that's just going to create more issues because, you know, now they're not getting work done during the normal 40 hours. And so the only really feasible way to tackle this issue was to pay them overtime. And so, you know, we were able to not have to do this until June, but we won't, I don't think we'll have enough overtime in the budget to get us through October, let alone a whole year of the next fiscal year. This was an area where I'm going to be approaching IPAA to see if maybe we can't influence the Supreme Court to do something different, because realistically what's happening is we're making these filings, but the court system, the judges aren't taking action until Monday or Tuesday anyway, which begs the question, then why make us do it within 24 hours? And so I have a lot of unanswered questions myself, but for the time being, we're stuck with this new ruling.
So I would guess leave it in for now, and then if something changes by August, whenever you present the budget, then we can make the change then. But yes, I would be very happy if you worked on that too.
Certainly.
Because that's not happy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, that's typical government.
Next is a request from 911 to increase their overtime budget from $204,000 to $279,000.
Yeah, and until we can birth a bunch of 25 to 35-year-olds who want that kind of job, then I don't see a way of getting around more overtime for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for all of the overtime budgets, I do like to just bring to your attention if they have enough salary savings to cover. 911 is a department that is so understaffed that their salary savings are sufficient to cover any overages, but obviously you are still able to increase the budget if you wanted to.
I guess my thing is, even if they go and train more, the training process is so long that they're going to have the overtime at least for next year.
Okay.
So that would be my.
Yeah, keep it.
And then next is a request from Sheriff's Admin to increase their overtime from $1,500 to $2,500, loaded cost of $1,100.
What, Sheriff, can you explain who this covers exactly in Sheriff Admin?
Background investigations
Okay,
specifically.
yeah, well, I think that would be reasonable.
Okay, I'm gonna mark that as a yes, unless anyone.
Yes.
Okay. Next is a request from jail to increase their overtime budget from $675,000 to $925,000. They are one that their salary savings this year is not enough to cover how over budget they are. Thus far this year, they've already spent $1 million in overtime.
I take it this is due to jail population,
Yes, it's averaging 100 more than we had last year.
which requires more deputies because you have more inmates.
Okay, am I marking this as a yes?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
With the understanding that this is minimum staff requirements and it's not for rewards. Thank you.
Another request from the jail to increase their temp and seasonal pool from $85,000 to $245,000. They've already spent $236,000 this year.
What is this, temp and seasonal?
It's like part-time deputies, I believe.
Bringing back the ones that have graduated.
Retired.
Retired.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I
Sure.
like that. I think in today's age that a lot of people just want to work part-time, honestly. So if we can use that to our benefit.
Yep, no, that sounds good.
Okay, I'm marking that as a yes. Next is a request from Sheriff's Office Maintenance to regrade the maintenance supervisor based on having a like job description elsewhere in the county, loaded cost of $6,300.
So that one is a little bit tied to our facilities director because we just had the split. So my question is going to be, when the facility director is hired, if admin building and grounds is going to stay the same. So that's almost an HR question that we would have to, so I'd like to revisit that. I can talk to HR in the meantime. And
Okay, I'm gonna
That's fine.
say discuss with HR.
yeah,
Next is a request from OEM to convert their admin assistant to a grants admin for a loaded cost of $4,700.
So on this one, I rather see the grants process finished first to see what effect that's going to have going forward. Because the one thing I don't want to see is we have a grants process, we have grant technicians, and then if each department is allowed to do their own grant, which I'm not saying I don't know, I haven't seen the process yet, then I don't want a bunch of conversions, right? Because now the departments are taking that on. We have departments who've done their own grants and they don't have these grant admins. So I would want to see that first.
Yeah, we can revisit.
Okay.
Okay, I'll mark that as wait for grants process to finish. Lastly, we have 2 requests from the treasurer. First, to convert a treasury specialist 1 to a 3, and next is to convert a treasury specialist 2 to a 3. Total cost of $12,800.
Well, as much money as Mr. Matheson has found us this year. So Jill, I guess the same question we've asked the other elected officials. Is this one where that's what they're going to do, is you're just going to progress and you're going to end up with all Treasury 3s?
That is what I pray for.
Okay. Okay. I don't have a problem with it.
That's fine.
Okay, I'm gonna mark this as a yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. The 2 people right now, the 1 and the 2, do they meet the qualifications and education of a 3?
So I have one of them down, I think, for mid-year. I had that conversation. I don't know if that's what the dollar amount is showing.
I don't think so. Let's see. Increase. No, these look like they're both 100%. So do you know, well, on my paper it is.
So the 2 to the 3, I'm imagining will be more mid-year.
Okay. So can we go ahead and put that at 50%, please?
Okay. Fund
Thank you.
the 2 to 3 at 50%.
Yep. And then the 1 to 3 can be 100%.
Okay, that's the end of the personnel summary. Now we're gonna move into the service awards and bonuses summary. And just going down the list, first is a request, $8,100. This is scheduled in the general, or budgeted in the general fund. This is the money that HR uses to pay out to employees for employee referrals. Like if they refer somebody and they get hired somewhere in the county, the
Yes.
existing employee gets a referral.
Yep.
You're good with that?
Yes.
Next is $1,600 from AMP. This would be annual bonuses for their employees, $127 per employee.
And is this brand new, or is this something that's been practiced before?
I believe this is brand new.
Okay, but it sounds along the lines of Parks and Waterways and Solid Waste.
Yep, and yes,
And
many
BOCC.
departments in the county have these. Okay,
I
I'm gonna
don't-
mark that as a yes.
I don't have a problem with it.
What was that amount again, Brandy? I'm sorry.
$127.
Yes.
Okay. Next is a request from the prosecuting attorney, or actually, sorry, HR, which is under the prosecuting attorney. This is $16,950. Again, this is money that they pay to employees in the county for their service awards based on how many years they've been employed here.
And apparently, we've had so many retirements, we can lower it by $1,000.
Yep.
I'm fine with that.
Yes.
Okay. Next is a $100,000 request from the sheriff's office to be used for sign-on and relocation bonuses for patrol, jail, and dispatch.
Yes.
Okay? Mark
Yes.
that as a yes. Next is $1,700 from the treasurer, annual employee bonuses for their employees.
Chief Deputy Treasurer, did she bail on us? Oh,
No,
there
she's
she
here.
is. It's just a little bit more than I'm used to seeing, so is there,
We upped it because we added an employee last year.
okay.
So same amount as we've done previously, but there's one additional employee, and the bonuses are only for our non-exempt employees.
Okay. Still just seems like a higher amount than I'm normally seeing. No?
It's only higher because it's one more employee.
Okay.
$1,700. Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
All right, I'm gonna mark that as a yes. Okay, unless I'm missing something, I believe that is everything that we were supposed to cover today for personnel. I know there's some stuff we marked down that for further discussion and analysis.
Yeah. So what I would probably recommend then, I know Commissioner Brooks needs to get out of here. So I would recommend that after our OpEx discussion, that we would probably have time to revisit some of these personnel issues if we can get those done in 1 week. So I guess next Wednesday, we can get some of these questions answered. I'm sorry, Angela, go ahead.
Angela Bergeson with Solid Waste. And I was just going to point out, because on the employee bonuses, Solid Waste doesn't do that any longer. We changed that, I think it was last year, because we did hams and turkeys instead.
Right, but essentially, it's, you're still
They do
providing,
something,
you're doing
yes.
something. So I didn't
Yes.
mean to
Not-
indicate
not
that
a
they were getting
cash
cash. Right.
Correct.
So, and I appreciate it, because I heard that you got very, very good
It was.
feedback.
It was
from
good
that.
feedback, but yeah,
So-
we changed it.
Yes, okay, thank you for
Thank you.
clarifying that. All right, is that?
Okay, so you said by next week, you'll hopefully have your follow-up conversations. I know Commissioner Matari will meet with the assessor.
Yes.
Now, this conversation regarding on-call pay, are you gonna have conversations before the next meeting, or is that something that you wanna discuss on the record next time?
Well, I mean, it has to be kind of on the record, but I
Yeah.
guess do you have enough time to research in 1 week? And, I mean, if not, we can always strive for it, and if not, we'll have it at the next deliberation.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy. I'll do the research. You know, I should be prepared next week sometime or the week after, whatever works best.
That works for me because we do have time.
Okay?
It's good to be a little bit ahead, so.
2 weeks or 1 week?
What do you
1
feel
week.
like?
Yeah.
One?
1 week, but then whatever.
1 week.
1 week. But whatever we don't have ready, we
good.
don't have ready, and it just gets pushed. So
Okay.
it's not a big deal.
Okay,
All right, so next Wednesday?
okay.
All right.
And I want to double check, which Brandy and I can do later on the, I don't think I brought it with me, on the other dates. We may have a conflict.
Okay, yeah, I ran them all by Julie, and she's the one that scheduled them all, but if something has changed.
Yes.
You're just gonna have to tell me.
Yeah, I think something has changed, so I'll want to address that, but, oh. If I had my person here, they would remind me to get it addressed. Instead, I have to put my pink pad out. All right, so the budget delibs.
And so next Wednesday, June 21st, from 2 to 3 is our OpEx. And just so you guys know, we have 3 more budget meetings left, and then I'm gonna be wanting the budget to be pretty balanced.
Honestly, my guess is 2. We need the one
Okay.
next week, and then the next week after that, we'll be done.
Okay, perfect.
So, yep. And-
Thank you. And I have nothing further, if you guys don't have any questions.
Okay, with that, 3:38, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm gonna be calling in tomorrow.
Okay.